Welcome, everyone.
Hi, welcome everybody.
Thank you for joining us for the second half of our show today on May the 4th, right, Desiree?
Yeah, happy Star Wars Day, everybody. It's May the 4th.
Yes, we just had a really great conversation with a few filmmakers in this area of Scranton, Pennsylvania, and we're able to talk a little bit about just what Star Wars did for them and how it made them better artists as well as creatives, and really keep the whole momentum going for May the 4th. I mean, this is a national holiday, right?
We'd like to think so, but it's not. But yeah, we had a great first half with Tony Susie, Josh Bidwell, and Rich Dries talking about Star Wars and why we love Star Wars and why it's been like this cultural phenomenon. We answered some trivia questions, which we got some right and some wrong. But
Very cool. Yes, and for those who don't know me, my name is Luz Cabrales, and I am the co-founder of the Independent Film Creative Hub, as well as Scranton Films. Where here in Scranton, Pennsylvania, we try to bring the film back to Scranton and really foster the filmmaking, special effects, music, anything that has to do with filmmaking, in getting people involved in the arts, as well as getting people motivated for just creating and collaborating together. So thank you so much for joining us today. Desiree, I'll give you the floor.
yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm Desiree Zelinsky. I'm also the co-founder of the Independent Film Creative Hub, and I run Meet the Film Society, which is a local filmmaking community here in Northeast Pennsylvania. And I'm also the organizer of the Mystery Box Film Challenge. But we're very excited to have on our episode Marlon Romero. He's a visual effects artist who pushes the creative boundaries while generating optimized solutions for games in VR. We are going to learn more about him and his creative journey in the industry, and also find out his kind of connection with Star Wars as well.
Yes, we're very, very excited. Martin has given us his time, very busy time, to talk to us about his connection to Star Wars, of course, but also just what makes him a creative artist. And we haven't had a visual effects artist in the show before, so this will be very, very interesting, just to see sort of how a lot of the games get created, a lot of the VR, virtual reality, and just getting the idea across. So what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna show Martin's demo reel and just some of the work he has done. And then we're gonna bring him in, and we're gonna just have a relax and a chat just about what makes him a great artist. All right, so
Yeah.
here we go. Wow, Martin,
That's incredible work.
that was really, really good
Thank
stuff.
you.
Thank you so much for being here. For the second half of the show, we're gonna give you the a couple of questions, but this is very, very laid back, just to kind of get an idea of what you do as a visual effects guy. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Of
What
course.
I like to do in this conversation is more for creatives to get motivated, and maybe someone out there is listening, and they may want to get into the visual effects part of the industry, or maybe someone veteran, that's been doing something else, that maybe wants to get into this. So I always start with the first question, which is, how did it all started for you as far as the creative aspect? I know it's a very broad
Right.
question, but you and I have a little bit of history, and I'll get to that a little bit. But just kind of tell me more about that.
Sure. Um, so 1999, I was in Sacramento, one of the most boring places in the planet Earth. So I was trying to get into some kind of creative field, and I think I started going to college in Sacramento City College for graphic designing. And at that point, I think we were using Photoshop. I don't know, Photoshop like 6 or 5 or something. I
Right.
can't really remember. And so we were animating layers and kind of moving them around. And I thought that was kind of interactive and kind of cool, but it wasn't enough. And the labs, the computer labs, I will see this guy playing on the computer with this 3D program. Um, I forgot the name of the software that he was using, but it wasn't Maya, it was something else. Um, and so I remember seeing this guy. He was animating this skeleton, and he would put the skeleton inside of like a grave or something, and then he will reanimate and going back up. And I was like, that's the kind of thing that I want to do, right? I didn't talk to him because he was like very quiet and very focused, so I didn't want to bother him. So I kind of carry that thought in my head of like, I want to do that kind of thing, whatever it is that he's doing, moving the stuff in space.
Yeah.
And so in 2001, actually 2002, I moved to San Francisco, and I went to different schools and just went to the Academy of Art University, to the one in there was one in Oakland. I forget the name of it. And then there was the one that I went with Luz to the Art Institute of California, San Francisco. And I think I even checked out another school. And then I think we applied. You needed to submit some artwork or whatever. And at that point, again, I'm kind of skipping back and forth. It's been
That's all right.
20,
That's all
almost
right.
20
We'll,
years.
Fine.
we'll narrow it
So
down.
I took some classes at San Francisco City College as well, and like drawing classes and things like that. So I brought that over and I showed it to the school, and they said, "Yeah, you can come in. Of course, you can come in. You're great." You know, signing the $100,000 whatever thing that
Right.
that you're
Right.
committed to, and I just went in, right, and so I started taking to the animation was the first thing that I went into. It was like frame by frame, like the way that Disney did it, which was amazing to me because I grew up watching a lot of cartoons, Bugs
Yeah.
Bunny, and all of these things. So everything was like one drawing at a time, one drawing at a time. The problem was that I didn't know how to draw. Like that really wasn't my thing, even though I wanted to do it. Like something wasn't really clicking, right? And regardless of how many classes I took, and people keep saying, "No, just keep doing that. You're gonna get better." It's like, no. Sometimes you don't have that gift. Sometimes you don't have that thing, and it's not going to work out. So quickly, I shifted gears, and I'm like, okay, let's now try 3D modeling and texturing. And Jason Wiener was the instructor at that point that
Yeah.
we had, and so he was so animated and so full of life or whatever. And if he's watching, he'll remember that I used to be like so fascinated by his energy. And so I did like the 3D aspect of it, and I was really excited about this whole thing. But then again, I was no modeler, right? And then we took 3D animation classes, and that wasn't really it either. And then somehow I discovered lighting and texturing and things like that, and I was like, "Ooh, I like this." So I started kind of like paying attention to the lighting and texturing aspect of the 3D world. And at the same time, I discovered this 3D animation. I'm sorry, this 3D particle system that came with 3D Studio Max. And so I started playing with it, and I started purchasing tutorials from this guy Alan McKay, and I just kind of like kept, like learning in my own. I purchased all of the DVDs that at that point, what was it, company in LA? We're giving props to everybody right now. The Norman School of Visual Effects in Los
Okay.
Angeles. So I purchased, I think it was like 14 DVDs that Alex Alvarez had released, and I just at that point I was with my girlfriend, and we just like purchased that, and that was the thing that I will do all day, just like watch these tutorials, try to go through them, and the reaction that I will get from people when I was doing these visual effects for mediocre, I guess that they were, the reaction was like, oh, that's interesting, as opposed to like, yeah, no, that's not really it. So I kind of latch on to that response that I was getting from people, and I just like kept going at it, right? When I graduated in 2007, I graduated with a degree on visual effects and animation, but there was no such thing at school. I made that degree myself just by watching tutorials and by just like spending countless hours on the weekends. Everybody was partying or whatever. I'll be locked in doing my own thing, and like I just became fascinated and obsessed with just like learning and getting better at it. And I mean, the rest, it just brings me to where I am right now.
Very, very good. So I'm gonna stop you there, and we're gonna break that down because that's you said like quite a lot of great things there, and a lot of
Sure.
things that are takeaways. So you the first thing is how I met Martin. Martin and I went to school together, and it was a different time. It was just the technology was there, but it wasn't there yet.
Right.
Like the way that when we get into the VR and what you do now, I don't think even that was like, it was very primitive at
Mhm.
that moment. So it's really nice how you said that sometimes, you got to tell yourself, like maybe I'm not really good at this, but let me explore something else.
Mhm.
Right. So I like that about that. And so for people who don't know like your background, the ones that are just starting here, I mean, you are a visual effects artist, but you taught a lot of that yourself. I mean, that is great. That's a great thing to take on, that you are, if you wanted, you're gonna have to like learn it your way because the stuff is not there yet for people to show it to you, right?
Correct. Yeah. So what I did have was all of that good stuff from school, the principles of animation, which are really important. Things like follow through, overlapping action. All of these principles, right? Like I could then apply them to the particle system's behavior, like the way things will behave and they will react with the proper gravity and the wind, how it will move the smoke and the steam, and all of these phenomenal, right, things that you start creating. Because back when ILM were doing it, right, it was all like I'm sorry, not computer, math generated, right? They'll just
Yeah.
write all of this math and all of this whatever, and then they get these beautiful behaviors going on. um, and so we didn't really get that in school. Nobody was teaching you like how to animate smoke and the velocities of them by using vector math and all of these things. No, there was none of that. It was just, you were just getting simple velocities, x, y, and z positions to move the particles, add some wind and some turbulence, and then you get some kind of behavior, right? Like stuff like that. So it was up to me. Like the more that I learned, the more that I try to execute into my work, and then I just kept exploring new venues, right? That will kind of like push me with the quality of work that I always wanted to go or to be at. Yeah.
Okay. No, very cool. Very cool. So that brings us to the other part, and then we can kind of dissect pretty much everything. I know Desiree wants to get a little bit more now on your professional work and what you do, and then
Mhm.
we're gonna sort of bring it back in a circle again, if you don't mind. So go
Sure.
right ahead, Desiree.
I know you mentioned that you were featured in There Are Special Effects Artists in Video Games Too from Katu was this article, and you were kind of like, it was like a highlight maybe in your career being featured in that article. So what is unique in doing visual effects in games versus for film necessarily? So is there something different between games and film?
That's a really good question. And so yeah, that was in Kotaku when that was released. Um, and my name was mentioned there among whatever how many other
Yeah.
people were there. And it doesn't matter if it would have been even 100 because there's thousands of us out there. So the fact that I was made, featured there, that was a big accomplishment. I guess it's more as for an artist, right? Like you're like, oh wow, you're recognized, right? Because you've been putting so much work, and for
Yeah.
us, it's just like to see that satisfaction, right? We do care about the money, but for me, it has always been more of the passion of the work. Like I always said, I wanted to get into this business to make enough money to pay for my wives and my kids, whatever, like to pay for the bills.
Mhm.
But then somehow it became a little bit more than that, and it's like it's a blessing, but at the same time it's your passion, right, that takes you there. So to go back to your point, um, I think, let's see, just wait for that.
We can
Yeah,
talk
like
about like visual effects in games.
I think because
so so
people,
so
yeah,
I don't want to take away from the film side, because the film side has been, it was like the Star Wars stuff, right? Was there? It was kind of like what created us to go into doing the whole like game things or whatever. But when you're working for games, when you're generating effects for video games, there's a lot of challenges, right? It's a lot of challenges because you're working with sprites, you're working with these cards that you put textures on, and you're able to, like, right, yeah, here's a great example right
Yeah.
there, right? Like that steam, when you're creating that in film, you're able to use like thousands and millions of like particles that will create that steam, and it's like little tiny dots that will give you that beautiful turbulent behavior. Here, I'm not doing that. Here is just a sprite that I put in, right? And I'm just animating the sprite and moving it and rotating it, and I'm animating the like in a smoke sequence
Yeah.
that plays into that car, and I'll just blend those particles, and then I'm presenting, and I'm kind of just moving that with some forces and things like that. And the other thing is that in film, sometimes you just get a different, let's say that you have, I don't know, a volcano, and then this thing is just erupting, and then you get this smoke or whatever, like going into one direction. That's the only shot that you get. When you're working in games, you need to present your idea from different angles. For example, here, you can go into that room and I can move the camera. I didn't do it that way because I'm not having a walkthrough. It's just, I decided just to shoot this as if I was shooting a movie. So it's very cinematic. And this was a personal thing that I did by myself, by the way, which we can get to it later. But the point being is that I can move around this entire room, right, and see that smoke. For film, sometimes it doesn't happen that way, right? Like you make it look really, really good from one angle,
right.
but you don't have to worry about what's going on the other side, because it's like shot, cut, put another shot, cut, right?
Yeah.
But for games, that has been the challenging thing, right? And I remember my first, when I got really serious working on this, I went to Crystal Dynamics, and I remember the challenging part of like, oh no, it looks pretty good from here, but we want to make it look from all the angles, right? So I would say that that's one of the things. I think it's how do you make something like the awesome visual effects that you see in Star Wars inside of a game when you're very limited,
Yeah.
right, by using sprites and things like that. Of course, nowadays the Unreal Engine now is pushing for fluid dynamics and things like that, but we still don't have uh, the computational power that can handle as many pixels on the screen the same way that we can do it in the film side.
Yeah.
Very, very good. That was a very good question, Desiree, and very, very great answer for
Yeah.
that, because you really you really are creating a 360 world, right, where every little thing can be seen in
Correct.
by the player. When you do games like that, just to kind of go on Desiree's questions, what is your process, right? Like, is as far as what your job is, let's just say this was a specific video game that you had to create an environment. What would be your job if you were in a team to make that? Because I see here that you have worked. I didn't do an introduction on you, which I apologize, but I see that you have worked on quite a few video games. Um,
Right.
and just to throw a few of them, I'll put them on the screen, but just maybe tell us a little bit about that, and to kind of go into the same question that Desiree said, how you can collaborate as a team, and what will be your task when creating that world.
Of course. Yeah. So the the environment that you were looking at over there, right?
Hmm.
And I can actually, I don't know if I can post another link because I have another link that can probably shows like a breakdown and it's easier to
Oh yeah,
see
Oh,
send
that's
it.
the
cool. Yeah.
things.
You can
So
just email it, and then
let's,
I'll post it up.
yeah, let me just go to Vimeo. And as I'm going there, and I'm going to get that fire
Oh, is it the fire, the
yeah,
Houdini?
the fire one, because the fire one has different layers, and you'll see exactly. And I can, as I'm explaining it, it's going to be easier for the viewers to
Yeah.
kind of get this whole thing. So
Let me
this
see.
was another like I always wanted it to create it to burn like an entire place, like a house or whatever. And when I worked at different companies, I didn't really have the opportunity, right? Or I would just get like a little piece, but I never had the chance to do the whole thing. Now, in this case, I am generating all of the fire sequences in a completely different program. I'm using Houdini to generate the fire. So I get Houdini, I set up everything the way that I needed to, and I exported those sequences out. I think I generated like 12 or 13 different kinds of fires, small flames, large flames. Now you can see the different layers here. And this
Right.
is what the environment artist will do. Somebody will model the house, somebody will do the textures, which usually is the modelers, and somebody will do the lighting. In this case, the models, I just purchased them from the Unreal store. You can just buy those. And then I set up the lighting the way that I wanted to. Since I like lighting so much, I set up this whole lighting and the whole place.
Yeah.
And but the highlight of what I wanted to do was just set up the fire. So that's kind of like what they will come to me and they will say, "Hey, Martin, we have these buildings that we want to burn or whatever. You know, go ahead." And most companies, they'll probably already have the fire sequences there, but I'm also showing that I can create the fires myself, right? Which is, it takes another skill level, right? Like it's not just, I'm not just setting up like a fire camp, which is what I probably would have done when I was working with, when I was in school with Luz. I probably would have done just a fire camp as my first big project. And
Right.
this time around, since it's been years of experience, right? I can leverage a lot of my skills to like generate all kinds of stuff and then just output, something like this, which is, it took maybe 3 weeks to get this whole thing going.
Wow.
And it's, again, it was a challenge that I wanted to do similar to the sci-fi that you saw before. I was just like, okay, I never done an entire sci-fi project. How can I do that? And I just went in and I purchased the level, did the whole thing. And yeah,
Very, very cool. And that's really good, just for people to understand that, people love video games. I mean, I think that is one of
right.
one of the biggest industries we have, is video games. And just to be able to make those worlds. So how would this differ, right? I see that you have worked on like Call of Duty Black Ops, Cold War, and then I see Ralph Breaks VR, right?
Mhm.
So like completely different as far as the look of them. You have something that is more for children, something that is a lot more for adults. How
Mhm.
do you differ your work from that, or is it basically the same idea that you're creating those particles, or however what you do?
Yeah, no, it's actually a good question because I keep wondering that myself sometimes. Like, I think that I can reach the level I think that I cannot go past like painting. Like if I were to do 2D animated effects, I think that I wouldn't be able to successfully do that.
Okay.
But something like Ralph Breaks VR, it's still stylized enough, but I can rely on a lot of the techniques that I used for like realistic stuff. I think realistic stuff is always has been my what is it that I'm trying? I don't know, my lucky charm, my lucky whatever, right? Like that's the thing that has gotten me this far. Just going for realistic stuff. That's kind of like what I prefer. But somehow I have able also to generate and create and successively produce a lot of stylized stuff, right? That is not realistic nor cartoony. So I'm able to still, like cross those boundaries and execute and make it fun. Like for the VR stuff, right? I can only put, or you can only see whatever is available online, because those are venues that you get to walk around with the headset, VR headset, and you have a blaster that you can use to shoot and things like that. So I did a lot of work, but I can't show it over here because it's I'll be giving away the
Right, right. No, no, no. Understandable.
the experience. But what I'm trying to get to is that when I was working on the VR on Ralph stuff, I was doing things like pancake and like milkshakes and like just fun little things. I was shooting these things that would just like burst with this kind of fun little cutesy things. And when I was working for places like Striking Distance Studio, right? I was working more in like gooey, goopy, like disgusting, like blood spurts and all of these things. So I don't know, it's the way that my brain works, right? When it comes to visual effects, I will just try to do the effect that I'm being asked for to do, and I don't know. I guess I've been lucky. I've been able to experience a different variety of styles, and so far it's worked out pretty well. Yeah.
Very, very cool. And as far as the process, that you have worked for many companies, and one of them, because it is made for, you have worked for ILMX Lab, which
Right.
maybe let us know a little bit, like, do they focus more on the VR? What kind of you don't have to say names if obviously,
Yeah.
if you don't have to, but like, what was your experience there in just being able to, something that you were able to work on the VR part of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
I guess tell us a
So
little bit about that
yeah.
experience.
So I worked on, let's see, one, two, three. I think it was 4 projects that I worked on when I was there for 3 years. And by the way, that was kind of like, I know that I usually talk about Tomb Raider. That was like the highlight of my career. But I think
Oh,
that having been at ILM, it was just like a dream come true. I remember going to SIGGRAPH, with, I used to go with my girlfriend, or we'll go with people from college, and we'll go to SIGGRAPH, right? And just being a SIGGRAPH, looking at all of these people that worked in Star Wars and did a lot of the stuff, like I was so fascinated with the whole thing. And I remember watching movies and going, oh, I would like to go to ILM one day, like if I can work there one day, that would be awesome. And I worked on that personal project, the sci-fi that I worked on, the one that you were showing earlier today. I showed it to during the interview, and they were like, yeah, we want you here. So I went in, and it was a dream come true to have, to just be there and to meet people, right? That I have seen their names on the credits and things like that.
yeah.
And of course, I wasn't working in the film side. I was working in the VR stuff. Regardless of that, the fact that I made it there, it was amazing. And so most of the stuff that we did, and I mean, this is public, is all ILMX Lab, it's all VR. So it's 90 frames per second, very challenging.
Mhm.
The good thing is that I have had all of this experience working on mobile games, working on PC, Xbox, whatever, right? Like I have worked on all of these different platforms, that when I got to work on another platform, which was VR, um, it was just a new thing. It was just for me to adjust, like my brain to adjust and like work on these things. Of course, there's a lot of constraints, a lot of constraints. I'm not gonna lie to you guys.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was working on, on things like the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the Millennium
Mhm.
Falcon, right? I got to do VFX for that incredible experience. So if you go to Disney, right? If you go to Disneyland and you get to try that, it's like that thing forever be there. And it's like I was able to work and do a little bit of effects for that thing. I wasn't the only one. There were other talented VFX artists as well, but I got to work on that. And that that right there is just, as an artist, you just feel accomplished.
Yeah.
That's great. That was actually Desiree's question, which you just hit that
Well,
right
I'll
on.
be going down there in September, so I'll be sure to
Nice.
go on the ride for the
Yeah.
Smugglers run. I mean, I don't know if you
You
want to
should-
elaborate how complex it is to do like a ride for Disney.
So the part that we worked on was only the VR part, right? Like the whole experience. And I'm not really sure how much I should be sharing here, because Island
No.
is very
True.
private.
Yeah, I don't like it in trouble.
I guess the question could be
You
like, from a game perspective, that you're using a controller, you're on a console, through a VR experience. Is it the same process for you as an artist, just to do specific things, or
the
is it more
process is the same. It's very limited, because when you're working in games, you have 30 frames per second, maybe 60 frames per second.
Mhm.
But now you go to VR and it's like, oh, we need to be, the headset has to be running at 90 frames per second.
Oh, wow.
Less than that,
Mhm.
it's gonna give people headaches, and it's just gonna make you
Right.
nauseated, and you're not gonna like it. So to try to keep that as an effects artist is a lot of, and also environment artists and whoever else is working, because you have to keep in mind lighting. You have to keep in everything is budget, right? Because every time you're turning your head to look at a certain area, it has to be within budget. So I'll give props to the TDs that do a lot of the budget for us,
Uh-huh.
right? I had an opportunity to work with, an amazing, he was an artist, but he was also very technical, and he was able to just do an amazing job of saving me the grief of just shaving my VFX, right? Because he will accommodate and he will balance a lot of the stuff out.
Oh, no, that's
Yeah.
very interesting. I never thought about that. That because people are putting on this,
Headset.
VR. Like you have to think about that kind of stuff as well. Like, are people gonna be sick? Are people gonna
Yeah.
feel nauseous? Very very good on that. Desiree, when you go to Disney, let us know how that. See, now you have a connection that you
Yeah.
you're gonna be
Yeah,
looking
I'll have to ride the Smugglers ride.
for all the video, the VFX for that. So just I guess we're getting a little bit to closing some of the stuff, but I want to make sure that, let's say, what do you love more about visual effects? Like, part of it? I know that you talked about particles, you talked about sprites, like all this stuff, without getting too technical, for the people that don't know all the specifics. But what is it that you love more about this than, let's say, animation or things like that?
Right. Yeah, I think it's, for me, is bringing things to life.
Yeah.
I was playing a game years ago. It was Ninja Gaiden on the Xbox, and when I passed I went through a few levels, and then I came back, and there was nothing, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" Like, there's nothing. It was just empty spaces, and I said to myself, if I get to work in games, I want to make sure that I always put VFX so that it's never empty. So you don't have to have an empty space. Like, let's say that you go through a level, but you can have like moss, right? And that would be something that a VFX artist will do, because it's just a few little. So particles are just like these points, right? And you get to animate these points. You get to give them velocities. You get to give them forces like gravity, right? Like noise, and you just kind of move them around. So animating these things and putting them at different levels bring spaces to life. So it's not just steam and explosions and
Right.
muscle flashes and things like that. It's also doing things like ambers, right? Like ambers will just bring, they'll give you the sense of, oh, there's a fire or whatever, and you have that animation, you have all of these things happening that just bring things to life. Everything, if you have a weapon, right, I'm able to collaborate with the animators and with the modeler, so that the weapon, we know when the weapon is loaded, we know when the weapon is active, we know when the thing is run out of bullets, right? And stuff like that. So it's not just in environments, it's also in weapons, vehicles, you name it, right? It's all kinds of opportunities where somebody like me in my position as a VFX artist get to bring things to life, I guess, in a nutshell. Yeah.
No, that's great. And that brings us to one of the last questions that we always ask everyone. Desiree, I'm gonna give you this one, and then I can close out some of the other aspects that we have.
Okay.
So we usually ask, what advice would you give to an up and coming filmmaker, or what advice would you give to your younger self about?
Yeah, like maybe something you didn't know you were,
Yeah.
getting into this that could
Right.
help.
So now that I've been doing this for a while, right, I'm able to kind of like not let go of the gas, because I'm not doing that. I don't think I will ever do that. But I'm able to balance things, and then to see that um, your life, your personal life, and your family comes first,
It's true.
right?
Yeah.
So balance is really important. You know, balance. Don't think that if you don't finish everything in one go, that you're gonna get fired. Uh, just keep consistency, keep doing what you're doing, but remember to have some balance in your life as well.
Very good.
That's
Very
great
good.
advice. Yeah.
That's very important, especially nowadays that there's so much stuff going on. There's so many pressures, especially because there's so much competition going on.
Right.
It's a competitive industry. So definitely, I mean that was great. We cannot thank you enough for giving us your time today, just to come here and share that. I really do think that someone out there is watching, and they're gonna see this, and they're gonna get motivated to maybe go into the same path of a special effects artist, or anything in that realm of games VR, because it's only growing. It's only growing.
Yeah.
It's gonna get even better and better. Just more realistic than ever.
Yep.
Right. Right.
So thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Desiree, any housekeeping that you may have, maybe do the same as far as Monday, what we have. And then I'm going to leave everyone with Martin's demo reel again, so they can check it out. And I think they can find you on LinkedIn, or any other social media other than that if people are looking to connect,
Oh,
or,
with me?
or just watch your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have the Vimeo page. I think you have my. Can I just put it in here in the private chat?
Yeah, put it
There's
right
that right
there.
there. I don't have. It used to be my page used to be Martin Romero VFX.com, but I use Vimeo, and
Okay.
it's very affordable. So I just pay like whatever the yearly fee is, $50, and I get to put all of my movies in there, and I don't have to maintain the website, and all of that. So
Perfect.
here's my Vimeo page too, and I think you had it, but I'll give it to you again.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't have what's the order? I mean, there's so much stuff going
No, you
on.
don't have to give us all your socials. Don't worry. This
I
is
don't,
more.
I,
This
I
one.
don't really have. Yeah, I mean, I just have my Vimeo page and my Facebook, but I don't. Facebook it's just like a personal thing. But I don't have what else? There's, I mean, so many things that people have nowadays. I don't really have any of those things. I just have Facebook and my Vimeo page, which is this
Very,
one right here.
very cool. While you put that up, Desiree, just do the closing what you need, and if you hang out until your demo is done, when we finish the broadcast, just to properly say goodbye. And
Yeah.
again, thank you so much, Martin. We really do appreciate
Yeah.
your
Thank you
time
so
today.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
want to
appreciate
thank
it too.
we want to thank everyone for joining us for our special Star Wars Day episode. We always have wonderful events coming up, so be sure to follow the Independent Film Creative Hub on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date with what we have going on. And we want to thank the Lackawanna County Arts and Culture Department for giving us a grant to do what we do, and for everyone who supports us by watching or listening or coming to our events. We really appreciate it. And to all our guests we value your wisdom and knowledge, and we love having you on. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can see any of these talks if you missed our live broadcast. And we also have a podcast on multiple platforms where you get your podcasts, where we put the audio of the interviews on. So if you want to listen to it or watch it, you can do that too.
Yes, definitely get creative and get motivated. Again, thank you. We're going to leave you with Martin's demo reel for those who missed it in the beginning. You all have a great night, Desiree. And
Yeah, and may the force be with you.
there you go. All right, sounds good.